आधे बाउल दही में 4 चम्मच MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला डाला, स्टर करो, पुदीना चटनी तैयार। MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला।
From the Republic Media Network headquarters, it's time for Arnab Goswami on the debate. Arnab Goswami on the debate.
Wow. At 8 p.m. tonight, has Trump's blunder pushed India-China closer? Has Washington completely moved away from the has New Delhi completely moved away from the Washington consensus? At 9 p.m. tonight, why Indian airline passengers have been taken completely for granted and why the aviation sector is one of the greatest failures of the central government. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to go full frame to the visuals, please. Thank you. Of Putin landing in New Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to receive him. As he landed in Delhi, he'll be here till tomorrow evening. And as we see these visuals and the bear hug on the tarmac of Delhi airport, a thought today. Trump has met Putin. Prime Minister Modi has met Putin, which means that the whole idea of Russian isolation is over. US and Western sanctions have completely failed. India and Russia, Modi and Putin, are two world leaders who have stood up for national interest. They have said, nation first. And that is why Russian crude is today 35% of India's imports. We are pushing back against American sanctions. And Putin knows it, that Narendra Modi has really stepped forward and refused to give in to pressure from America. America is putting huge sanctions against India, but Narendra Modi and India has made it very clear to America that 70-year partnership with Russia will not be sacrificed for a few months of Trump's pressure. Ladies and gentlemen, the West realizes how important this relationship is. And as we cover every aspect of this visit, as we tell you about all the important developments and agreements, the fact is that India is asserting its strategic autonomy. The Prime Minister is willing to defy American pressure. And India has refused to become a single source client on defense. We have made it very clear. We have made it absolutely clear to the Americans that we will do business with any vendor in any country, depending on what our national interest is. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, as you watch these visuals, also keep in mind that Russia also needs India. Russia needs a big partner, a solid partner other than China. Russia cannot afford to fall back on China every time. Moscow cannot afford total dependence on Beijing. A stronger India-Russia commercial link is very good from Putin's point of view as well. Therefore, this is a win-win on both sides. And this marks the return of the India-Russia summits. Going forward, India joins the League of Great Nations working together to make sure multipolarity is not a dream, but a reality. Before we move forward, let me run a small news package, if it is ready. Is it ready? On the developments so far.
In a rare gesture of respect and camaraderie, PM Modi personally arrived at the Palam Air Base to welcome Russian President Vladimir Putin on his first state visit to India since the Ukraine war began. This is President Putin's first visit to New Delhi in over 4 years, where he will be received with full state honours tomorrow at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in the morning, with the 23rd India-Russia annual summit meeting to follow in the day and a state banquet in the evening hosted by President Murmu. It was all smiles when President Putin disembarked from the flying Kremlin, with PM Modi welcoming him with the classic Modi hug, giving Washington flashes from Tianjin. PM Modi and President Putin yet again sat in the same car as they exited the Palam Air Force Base. Modi is hosting President Putin for a private dinner at his residence 7 Lok Kalyan Marg this evening, reciprocating the courtesy he received when he visited Moscow last year at Putin's Novo-Ogaryovo residence. Earlier in the day, Russian Defense Minister laid a wreath at the National War Memorial in New Delhi. Along with his counterpart, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh, Union Minister JP Nadda also met the Russian ministers ahead of the crucial annual summit tomorrow. Meanwhile, Washington is watching closely. However, Trump is not rocking the boat as he desperately tries to cling on to his peace effort hopes.
I don't know what the Kremlin's doing. I can tell you that they had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. We're going to find out. It's a war that should have never been started. But you have President Putin had a very good meeting yesterday with Jared Kushner and with Steve Witkoff. What comes out of that meeting, I can't tell you, because it does take two to tango.
While India and US have hoped to sign an interim trade deal by fall this year, with a possible Trump visit, it is Putin who is in town. With a potential S-400 and Su-57 deal talks on the cards, and the deepening bilateral cooperation on trade, technology and energy, has Washington made a strategic mistake by backing Pakistan post-Sindoor fallout? Are Russia and India stronger than ever before, courtesy President Trump?
Ladies and gentlemen, as we get the fresh visuals, we have the visuals there of the Prime Minister and Putin. That is at the Prime Minister's residence, where Putin and Modi will be having dinner in some time. And we're going to be analyzing this very important visit. And the live visuals will be coming across, we'll be cutting across straight to them. Once again, to remind all our viewers that Russian President Vladimir Putin is on a visit to India at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This is technically the 23rd India-Russia annual summit. And this is, these are visuals of from 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, where the meeting begins. And I think it begins with an informal dinner between both the world leaders. Now, viewers, I have with me our panel, General G.D. Bakshi, Saurabh Shukla, who's the Chief Consulting Editor of Republic, Einar Thangen, Dmitry Sims, journalist from Sputnik, Nikita Menkovich from Moscow. He's head of the Eurasian Analytical Club. Matthew Vandam is a senior journalist from Washington. And we have analyst and former chief economist at Citi, William Hendrick, with us tonight from New York. Thank you, gentlemen, everyone, for joining us tonight. If I may begin by asking Dmitry of Sputnik. Dmitry, how is this visit being seen? Is it more than ceremonial? And how is it being reported in Russia?
Well, it's definitely far more than just ceremony, because otherwise you wouldn't see Putin bringing such a large and diverse delegation. You have, on the one hand, people from the security side, as evidenced by Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov and other senior defense ministry officials, but you also see a very robust economic delegation. You see the head of the Russian central bank, Elvira Nabiullina, the head of Russia, and the head of Russia's largest banks, such as Sberbank, VTB. You see Russian First Deputy Prime Minister Denis Monterev, who has for years basically curated the industrial side of things. And I think that if the message that Russia is sending here is that Russia is going big on Bharat, Russia is not just interested in limiting the partnership to arms deals or energy sales. Russia wants to see Indian businesses sell to the Russian market, have success in the Russian market, and they want to see Indian businesses occupy some of the niches previously filled by Western brands. And that's that's what it's going to take in order to boost $100 billion by 2030, which is the goal that both sides have set for themselves.
Absolutely. This is Vladimir Putin's first visit in 4 years. It is being seen as the return of the regular India-Russia summits. It's also significant because India has navigated significant crosswinds fighting America. And America feels it is the only country which can be in talks with Russia. So I'd like to go across to William Hendrick in New York. After all the tantrums and all the shouting matches and all the threats and all the sanctions of Trump, this visit and these visuals, how will Washington read this? William Hendrick, how will policymakers in Washington read this visit?
Well, it is clearly a statement by the leaders of India and Russia that they will not be intimidated and pushed around by the US. The problem is that Russia is not a significant economic player. It's the 11th largest country in the world. Its economy is just over half the size of India's economy. And the US is more than 14 times larger. The only significant economic relationship is India's import of Russian oil, which is coming down quite rapidly this year because of intensified American sanctions. India imported last year $63.8 billion worth of imports from Russia and only sold $4.9 billion. India exported $73 billion to the US that same year. So Russia is simply not a significant economic player. They cannot take over from the US, Europe, and the West in general. India can diversify its trade, move away from what it considers to be excessive dependence, perhaps, on the US, and it can do that. But Russia will just be a very small player in that new strategy.
I'm not sure I agree with that assessment. I mean, if Russia was such an insignificant player, then why would Trump be the greatest advocate of Russia's interests? If Russia was such a one minute. So may I get Nikita to respond to this? This view coming in from New York that Russia is a very insignificant player. India's economy itself is twice as large as that of Russia. But it's also about power play. I think America is in denial about the significance of Russia, especially in power projection. And if Russia was such an insignificant player, then why would Trump overreact to India buying crude oil from Russia all this while? I'd like Nikita's response to this view from New York, please.
First of all, I think that's really a little bit funny when a lot of United States speakers come in here to say they don't care about Russia. if you don't care about Russia and India talks, maybe you have a lot of business to do in your country, with your poverty, with your economical problems, with your inter-race aggression. You have a lot of problems. But you always came here to India, to Ukraine, to any other country to tell that you absolutely don't care about it. But you say, India must, Russia must, China must, Iran is also must do something you want. I think that you American guys should finally understand you're just a country with your own problems and your own business to do. What is discussed by Russians and India, it is not your business. It is not you who may say, do it or that. It is not you who discuss the situation of Ukraine. You started this war, but you are losing it. Forget about it. Russian and Ukrainian people are going to choose those future without you. I don't really understand why we do see here a lot of people from the United States to comment the India-Russian talks. Maybe you'd better invite some Chinese expert or Pakistan. It's will be more rational because Pakistan is your neighbor. He may have some kind of interest in this situation. But American guys are just losing those and our time.
No, I think there's a choice. I think the point to be made here tonight, and I would say that we cannot but at all underestimate the significance of this visit. The West can say what it wants, but this is a country called India, which has been under tremendous pressure from the United States of America to almost snap its relationship with Russia. And the simple policy of Donald Trump in America has been put a lot of disincentives and then say, if you listen to me, I will provide you incentives. The incentives are taking away the disincentives. So you say, I'll put 100% tariffs and then say, if you're going to be a good boy, I'll bring it down to 50%. And what India has done here, what Narendra Modi has done here, what makes Narendra Modi a great leader? A great leader. He has said, I will do what is important. I will keep my defense engagement, my foreign policy engagement, my economic engagement with Russia going come what may. So my reading is, and I'd like to go to General G.D. Bakshi, is that this meeting is Narendra Modi's quiet but self-assured way of telling the world that it's nation first for India, that the sanctions are a water of a duck's back, as it were. General Bakshi.
Absolutely, Arnab. The simple fact is, this is a statement of the assertion of India's strategic autonomy, strategic autarky. We will make our own decisions based solely on the centrality of India's national interests. We will not be bullied, we will not be pushed, we will not be threatened or cajoled. The United States has put the highest sanctions on India, not even on China. It has put the highest sanctions on India and Brazil because it deems them to be the central pillars in the BRICS, which it views as a threat. The Russia-India-China triangle had been spoken of by Primakov in the 1990s. That was very premature. But the simple fact is that the unipolar movement is long past. For the United States to still act as if it is living in a unipolar world, well, is fanciful. And Donald Trump is now realizing that by slow degrees as nations stand up to it. India stood up to Donald Trump and a number of nations have followed, including Japan, including other countries which have, taken a second look at all the trillions of dollars they had promised to the United States. The simple fact is that you might say that Russia's economy is small. Don't forget the fact that Russia has the biggest nuclear arsenal in the world. It is the most modern nuclear arsenal. Russia has one of the strongest conventional militaries in the world, which has proven itself in the war in Ukraine, right? Despite all the support from the United States of America, from Europe, etc., Ukraine has now virtually lost that war. So to just grade Russia in economic terms, Russia's economic shortfalls could well be met by its relationships with India and China, and with BRICS for that matter. BRICS as a grouping has far greater clout today than the American Western bloc put together. The G7, the BRICS carries far greater clout in pure terms of demographics, in pure terms of economics, etc. The BRICS is a force to reckon with, and at the core of the BRICS is the Russia, India, China triangle, which has far greater strategic heft than is or can be measured in terms of pure dollar terms. As it is, we are trying to see that we trade with one another not in dollars but in terms of our own currencies. That by itself could hold out a threat to the dominance of the United States dollar, upon which the US economic supremacy or superiority is premised.
I think so.
If the dollar ceases to be the global currency, America will suffer quite a bit.
William, you seem to be disagreeing with what General Bakshi says. But may I add one point here that I personally believe, Matthew can come in on this, and Einar can come in on this. I personally believe that there'd be a lot of people in Washington who'd be really happy at the Putin-Modi deep India-Russia engagement, especially the growing group of Trump critics. You know, because what Trump has been forced to do, Matthew, is that he's been forced to engage with Russia, come down from his high horse, and also watch the visuals of Putin meet Modi a day after he met his own son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who flew down on Trump's behalf to Moscow. So if there's anyone really who's had to compromise here or come down from his high horse, Matthew, it is Trump. It is Trump who's being forced to change his line and soften his line because he's dealing with tough leaders. He is bitten off more than he can chew, Matthew. Narendra Modi, Vladimir Putin are tough. Xi Jinping, they're all tough leaders. Big countries who know power projection. And you know, Jared Kushner had to go to Moscow to re-engage with Putin, and then Putin finishes that and flies down to meet Modi. What does this signify? I'd like your thoughts. Matthew.
Well, I think that the United States is not having its way with India, and it's pretty clear that President Trump's efforts to pressure India to move away from Russia are not working. In fact, they seem to be backfiring. The tariffs and his crackdown on H-1B visas for the United States and so on, that doesn't seem to be going well. The fact that India is being pushed, so to speak, into the arms of Russia is a sign that Trump's policy towards India is not going the way he would like it to. He thought that he could impose some tariffs on India and pressure it in other ways to do what he wants, and it doesn't seem to work. And the primary motivation behind that, I don't think it was necessarily economic. I think it was military. President Trump doesn't like India buying buying oil and energy products from Russia, and he wanted to discourage this behavior in the future. And it looks like the policy is not working.
Exactly, that's a big admission here. That's a really, really, really big admission, isn't it, Saurabh? And that's the brilliant part about this engagement, Saurabh, that for 2 years after the Ukraine war began, New Delhi maintained a deliberate, calibrated distance from political signaling with Moscow. From February 22 to July 24, our strategy was simply keep the relationship functional but low-key, avoid triggering anyone. The person who got triggered was Trump. And Trump says, if you buy Russian crude, I'm going to punish you. And then he made multiple comments on how he would punish India.
Arnab, let me spell it out. Anybody who thinks that this visit is not being watched in any major capital, including Washington, is living in a fool's paradise. This is one of the very high-profile visits which is being watched very closely. What Prime Minister Narendra Modi has done through this is reinvented the global diplomatic engagement. It's a creative and out-of-the-box diplomacy where he's sending a clear message to everyone in the world that India not only values the strategic autonomy, but India's voice counts. See the timing of the visit. Not only this is significant in bilateral geopolitical terms, this is also significant because India is also playing a role in bringing peace to Ukraine as well, at a time when Russia and the US talks are strategically poised. India is playing a key role here as well. So India is a dominant global player and is a clear message to everyone that you cannot ignore India. That's one. Second thing, India will do diplomacy on its own terms, whether it's the defense deals that it undertakes, the energy deals it undertakes, it will do that. Don't forget, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was the only world leader who even told Vladimir Putin that it's not the time for war. So here is India's Prime Minister conveying to the world that India's voice counts. And it may be, it's the multipolar world, but it's a world which is centered around certain countries. And every country will act in its own strategic interest. And I must tell you that behind the scenes, yes, even the US-India ties are progressing, but not at the same pace as they should have been progressing, certainly. And with Russia-India ties now going on an upswing, certainly there are enough and more people in Washington who obviously want that the US-India ties, which have lagged behind in the recent past, they will get impetus. So in some ways, this is, I would say, a creative strategic diplomacy that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is undertaking as we talk today. And this will not only have a bearing on India's relationship with Russia, but will also have a bearing on India's standing in the world, and also when it comes to relationship with the US. There are, I would say, strategic collateral gains in every relationship, and India values every relationship independently of each other. So that's the big message that's coming out tonight. And there are interesting things. In fact, if you see the white car there, I want to tell you, I've covered diplomacy for a long time. He has chosen a Toyota Fortuner, not his traditional, a Range Rover or a BMW that Prime Minister rides on. There is a security strategic message here as well, Arnab. Let me not spell it out.
I think there is, but there's another point here tonight. I'm very curious to know how China will be looking at this visit, and so will the viewers of Republic. China will be looking at this very, very closely. I began by saying, Einar, that I think Russia also realizes it cannot be completely dependent on China. It needs a strong economic ally. It needs a strong strategic ally as well. So I thought this would also be Russia's interest to have a deep relationship with India. But my question to you is that, can this really become a three-way relationship? I'm not sure, because India continues to have issues with China. China, unfortunately, precipitated things a little last week by trying to harass an Indian citizen who's from Arunachal Pradesh and troubled her, and then issued a statement from the foreign ministry. So there was an opportunity here, I thought, that there is no Quad summit happening. India's hosting of Putin stands out sharply. But how does China view this from a global perspective and from China's perspective?
Well, as far as I can ascertain, Beijing is actually quite happy about it. Right now, you have a situation where the BRICS have been targeted by Donald Trump. It's 50% on Brazil, insistence that somebody who tried to stage a coup be released. South Africa, he's not going to go to the meeting next year, saying the G20 is irrelevant and he doesn't believe South Africa is good. India, China, and also, of course, Russia. So what you have now is a situation, and the general mentioned this, it completely changes the relationship at both the SCO and also BRICS. India was always the balancing factor. They're the ones who said, look, we don't need to start anything. Let's be cautious. Let's wait. That could change. Vladimir Putin has showed up with his bankers. He's serious. If he's willing to help India with infrastructure, with investment, to wean it away from the United States dependence, this would be a game changer. Donald Trump sought to isolate all of his, quote, possible competitors. Instead, what he has done is isolated the United States. So from China's perspective, every country is entitled to take its own course. Obviously, getting together with Russia makes perfect sense, especially given the historical situation. So there's not going to be anybody in Beijing worrying about it. Do India and China have issues? Yes, they have different narratives about them. Hopefully, at some point, they settle. But that is for the future. Right now, India is sending a very, very strong signal to the world that it's not going to be co-opted. It's not going to be bullied. If that continues with a group setting, where perhaps it would makes sense for Europe, BRICS, ASEAN, the rest of the world to go to Washington and tell Donald Trump to stuff his tariffs. Doesn't matter how much he wants to tariff his own people. He will not be allowed to play this cynical game where he plays different countries off against each other for his advantage. That is not the way the world is going to work in a multipolar world.
I think listening to everyone, I think Trump made some really bad choices, William. He kept hosting a Pakistani army chief, kept having lunch with him. And India said that this is the man who has organized a massacre, who has sent jihadi Islamist terrorists and killed people and abused Hindus and justified the killing of Hindus and justified the killing of Indians. But Trump loves to do business with these kind of people. I think if Idi Amin was around, Trump would have done a deal with him, a 10-year deal, and sent Jared Kushner to seal the deal. This immorality, and then after that, to be treated disrespectfully, to treat India disrespectfully. The world's largest democracy has said to Trump today, William, that we are not going to follow your script, we are not obliged to. And also try to blackmail India, you see, William, not give us the engines that you promised on a written contract for our fighter jets, and then expect us to buy more defense equipment from you. I think America has lost its moral authority. It never really had any, William, but it's dealing with countries who are going to control the global economy 15 to 20 years from now. And increasingly the pushback is going to become very obvious. The world is not unipolar, William. Will Trump understand this now? It's not even bipolar. It's multi-aligned, and India is also a center of gravity in this. Every country will want strategic autonomy. I think you were wrong when you said Russia doesn't matter. How can you say Russia doesn't matter? Can you explain this to the Russians? You said Russia doesn't matter. It's a small country. Well, why did you say that at the start? Can you explain that to our Russian friends? Can you explain that to Dmitry?
Absolutely. But when I said that Russia is not important, it is as an economic power. Russia has an enormous nuclear arsenal, the world's largest, and probably the world's most up to date as well. So that has to be taken seriously and respected. But from an economic perspective, it is the 11th largest country. It's a small economy. The UK is larger, France, Italy, Canada, Brazil is larger.
Yeah,
So,
it is India's largest defense ally, and will continue to be.
So historically, this has been the case, and 60% of India's military hardware, the stock, is of Russian or Soviet origin.
Yeah, because
Correct.
no, we can't trust
But
you.
India is
We
trying
can't
to
trust
change
you.
that.
We can't trust you.
India,
You're an
I'm not
untrustworthy.
defending-
You're an
I'm not
untrustworthy ally in
defending
terms
Mr.
of
Trump's
defense.
foreign
No,
policy.
you said the GE. You can ask General Bakshi here tonight. General Electric has refused to supply the engines, right, Saurabh, General Bakshi, that were promised to be sent for our light combat aircraft. You are blackmailing India. And
I'm not defending. I'm not defending.
Arnab, we
Trump's
had
foreign
paid
policy
$1 billion
or his economic policies
hard
or
cash.
his tariff policies.
no.
in general.
One minute. Yes.
So that's not what we're talking about. We're asking here, Russia is likely to remain a significant military supplier to India. India is trying to diversify its sources, even of military supplies. First of all,
this, I think, General Bakshi and our Russian friends, please, let's get another perspective on this. A section of Americans who believe that Russia is not significant. I want a response maybe from Dmitry first in Moscow.
Economically significant.
Yeah.
Economically
Yeah,
significant.
I'd be delighted to respond to set the record straight. So we've heard this narrative for years now that the Russian economy is weak and that it's insignificant. Let's ask ourselves a question. If the Russian economy is so weak and so insignificant, why is it that the Russian economy has outgrown the entire G7 in 2023 and in 2024, despite having 25,000 sanctions imposed on it? Why is it that Russia has the industrial capacity to outproduce all of NATO in terms of ammunition? And the key reason is that the economic statistics that William uses are fake, basically, because most economists don't look to nominal GDP because nominal GDP doesn't account for differences in purchasing power parity, which is the more significant metric that we look at. And if we look at GDP by purchasing power parity, Russia is in the top 5. And what's moreover, Russia is key to global supply chains in energy, in terms of various rare earth minerals and metals that the United States itself depends on. American planes can't fly without Russian titanium. Americans can't make chips without Russian palladium, and so on and so forth. So what I would say is that when we look at in terms of who has the more stable economy, who has the more promising economy, I would definitely say it's Russia, because Russia doesn't have a $35 trillion debt. Russia doesn't have a massive deindustrialization problem that's only getting worse. Russia doesn't have collapsing infrastructure. And most importantly, when you look at the sectors leading the Russian economy, they're not government spending, they're not healthcare and hospitality. So what I would say is the American economy in 2025 is a massive Potemkin village. The only reason why the Americans have any positive growth right now is because of the AI bubble. But everyone admits that the AI bubble will pop sooner rather than later. So don't throw stones if you live in a glass house.
And also, America has largely failed, hasn't it, with everyone? China's economic support for Russia's war economy continues. Iran has outrightly rejected your nuclear negotiations. You had to back off after a symbolic strike. In fact, Iran retaliated by attacking American bases in the Middle East. The Alaska meeting with Trump did not yield anything. So, Matthew, it's looking very bad. China has arm-twisted America on the export of rare earth metals. China has imposed retaliatory tariffs on American goods. Trump had to back off, right? And Trump is even flying Air Force plane which has been gifted from the Middle East. So things are getting really, I mean, if you look at it, extremely logical. More importantly, Einar, yesterday, I think it was the Wall Street Journal which reported, Matthew and Einar, it said that Xi Jinping has said, I want Taiwan, I want the Chinese military to take over Taiwan by 2027. Not one statement, Matthew, from Washington. Not one statement. Nikita, was there one statement from Washington saying, no, you can't do this? You can't do this. Not even one statement pretending the Wall Street report did not happen. So, Matthew, if China decides to take over Taiwan, what can America do now anymore? Has America, in your view, overplayed its hand?
With respect to Taiwan, I don't think America has overplayed its hand. Taiwan is important to the United States, and the United States has indicated that it will assist in some way. I guess it's kind of vague what they're going to do. Taiwan and help to shield it from a communist Chinese invasion, an invasion that almost certainly is not going to happen because China needs Taiwan to produce semiconductors, to produce chips, and so on. And so when China is doing this saber rattling with Taiwan, it just does this as a matter of Beijing's policy. I don't think they really mean to invade Taiwan. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that the United States is in retreat worldwide. The United States economy is huge compared to Russia's, even if you use this obscure PPP indicator that one of the other guests referred to.
One minute.
Dimitri
said
still
obscure
US
PPP,
is like 25
obscure?
trillion, and
Why?
Russia's
Why obscure?
Uses it. The CIA uses it to measure economic strength. Is the CIA using an obscure and irrelevant metric?
The CIA uses all sorts of metrics in its reports, but the most widely accepted metric of economic strength for countries is the GDP, where America is like 14 or 15 times the size.
It doesn't account for.
However, even with the PPP, Russia is still nothing compared to the United States. 6 trillion versus 25 trillion. Russia is not an important economic player, and I don't think it's going to be. Russia is a backwards economic basket case. So, but none of this.
Matthew, you're calling Russia a basket case, but you must accept here today. One minute. You must accept here today. Russia has done really well for itself since your sanctions. You thought you would bring Russia to its knees. I can ask you one thing tonight, Matthew, without being disrespectful to you. What happened to America making Canada its 51st state, which was announced from Mar-a-Lago?
Well,
what happened to America taking over Greenland, purchasing it for $10? What happened?
Yeah.
What happened to the takeover of the Panama Canal? What happened to the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico? I mean, you've got to be real. You see, these are just realities. See, Matthew, I don't mean to embarrass you at all, but this is what Trump has done to America. Then he will go to Alaska once again to greet Putin, who will tell him next time, don't worry, Trump, come to Moscow. You saw the commanding way in which Putin told Trump, come to Moscow. Trump is like a child when he meets Putin. You know these realities, Matthew. It's not looking good. And also, Dimitri was right. It's not 35, it's 37 to $38 trillion in debt.
Well, I was referring to the GDP and the PPP metrics. I wasn't referring to
okay, let's go back to this meeting. In the context of all of this, the significance of this meeting, I'd like to go back to Nikita because viewers in India are interested in getting a global perspective. on what's happening at a time when many in India believe the India-US partnership is beyond a point of no return?
I think that our problems now is that we have a historical visit of Mr. Putin to India. We have a lot of topics to discuss. The future cooperation between India and Russia in energy, in medicine, in IT, in defense and weapon production. We have a lot of things to discuss. But we're sitting here and discussing American dreams about world power. It looks strange. We have a lot of work to do, India and Russia. We don't need these American guys to argue with them about those dreams, to be a leader, to be a standard, to be an example for other countries. United States is just a usual country. It's smaller than India do. I don't want to feel someone bad. It's not bad to be smaller than India. But you should understand, India shouldn't pay attention to your remarks. Russia has no need to prove you that we are great enough to live as an independent country. Please, we should change our behavior. We should forget about so-called American perspective. No. If we want to have an international debate
I would forget all that. I agree with you, Nikita. We can't be reactive on issues. But today, what is the issue here? The issue was always Russian oil, Saurabh, wasn't it? Einar, it was Russian oil, but European Union is the largest buyer of Russian LNG. France, Belgium, Netherlands, Hungary, all these are big countries buying Russian oil. Europe is the second largest importer, 22% of Russian LNG imports. Japan is the third largest importer. Japan is the third largest importer. So this whole aggression on Russian oil, Einar, this aggression on Russian oil is over after today. Basically, India is saying tonight, Einar, can I have Einar? He's speaking, Aditi, he's speaking. You have to look at who's speaking. Einar.
You cannot forget the fact that it was the U.S. who asked India to buy Russian oil. I mean, this is the part that is very, very hard for most people in the Beltway to understand. You ask India to buy Russian oil to stabilize the price so that you do not have these huge spikes, which would have affected the United States. This was a political move. And now you have, Trump saying that if you buy oil from Russia, it's a big issue. I mean, the part I don't understand is he always claims that he's a friend of Modi, calls him up on his birthday, wishes him a happy birthday, and the very next day tells Europe to put 100% tariffs on India. I mean, it's befuddling. I know he likes madman politics, but obviously from the tone of everybody here, it's not working. This issue about purchasing power parity, I would suggest my American colleague consider that what you can buy and what you can live by is the true measure of your economy, not nominal dollars.
That's well said, and also the world.
Can I add?
Yes.
Arnab, quick dimension. President Trump has used these tariffs as a negotiation tactic.
Yes.
He's a deal maker. If you remember my question to him when Prime Minister Modi went there, he said, Prime Minister Modi is a tougher negotiator. That's what is actually playing out in the real sense. So post this, I can tell you, it will spur not only Russia-India relationship, this will have a positive impact on US-India relationship as well, because the US also realizes that they don't want to miss out the bus. Prime Minister Modi has proven once again that he, in some ways, is an epicenter when it comes to global diplomacy, and he does his own distinct style of diplomacy. And often, some of these acts help us consolidate our bilateral partnerships as well, besides a global worldview. So I see a positive impact of this happening, even on India's relationship with the US, because at the end of the day, everybody values their self-interest.
But there is, I've been speaking to a lot of...
US does not miss out here as well.
I've been speaking to a lot of people, influential people, policymakers, and what they've been saying to me, William, is that we have learned how to handle Trump. In India, what people say is we know how to handle Trump. And the feeling is that nothing matters because we had our GDP numbers, Q2 GDP numbers. By the way, William, you've been a chief economist at Citi, you should know, we've grown at a historic 8.2% growth quarter on quarter. That's huge. The whole world wants to talk to us, which means we have absorbed whatever small losses are there because of your sanctions. So,
I agree that India's economic performance is remarkable.
But so is Russia's,
right?
Relatively.
India
so is Russia's.
Strong demographics. Russia's economic prospects are poor. Its economic size is de minimis. And I think the GDP at market prices is the right measure of economic power. Adjusting for purchasing power parity gives you better views of standards of living, but not on market power. So Russia, simply from an economic perspective, is not a realistic alternative to continued economic trade with Europe, with the
we
US.
seem to...
Yes, the world is becoming multipolar. Yes, India will be the center of one of the poles. It is undoubtedly inside the economy, but Russia is not a significant economic player.
Yeah, but America is isolating itself here, William.
Yes,
America is isolated. We are talking to Europe, we are talking to Canada, we've increased our business with Latin America, ASEAN.
I agree.
So I think America is the only country completely getting isolated. At some point, Einar, do you believe that these pressures will not be counterweights for America but liabilities? Because at some point, given the social fabric, the difficulties within American society, the disparity, and the homelessness on Manhattan, that America will have to roll back a little bit of the pressure it's trying to put for the world. Trump is still going around congratulating himself in global capitals, saying, we've never had so much money in America. Do the Americans feel the same way? Those who I speak to clearly don't. They say there's a lot of poverty, a lot of social divide in America that's happening right now, a lot of tension that's building up. What's your reading?
Well, you just have to look, you can't look past the fact that he sent troops to American cities. I mean, this is not the sign of a free and well-functioning democracy. In terms of my chortling friend in New York, I mean, I find it hard to believe that he wants to, perpetuate this myth that America is a strong man. If we were so strong, why did we get whipped by 30 to 40,000 Taliban? Why did we lose every war since World War II, other than attacking Grenada? I mean, we do not have the pedigree to insist that being bigger makes us better, hasn't made us more effective. The world is not safer. We've spent trillions of dollars on these wars, and we're still continuing to pile them up. It is now past 38 trillion. With the additional things that Donald Trump is asking for, we're going to be soon across 40 trillion. The danger there is that there is no way that there's no plan to pay it back. Neither party has the will to say, look, it's time to either tax or stop spending. And if they do stop spending, unfortunately, it's stop spending on those who need it most and start, throwing more money at the war machine. Hasn't worked in the past. And you kind of wonder if Washington will ever wake up, look in the mirror, and decide it's time to change. It's not unipolar. It's part of a world, and it needs to act like a responsible citizen instead of a rogue.
And right now, again, going full frame to go to the break tonight, Putin and Modi are at dinner. We'll get the fresh shots. I'm sure there's going to be a press release. But the bigger story of the day, the complete chaos in our aviation sector, and why I believe this duopoly between Air India and Indigo is a terrible thing to happen. When I'm back.
Time for a quick breather. Arnab will be right back with the debate.
ये है सीक्रेट रेसिपी MDH का जीरा सिप जल जीरा मसाला। सिप सिप जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप।